Greetings, Lumen students. It's week 5 and this is your Tuesday video. Thanks for joining us today. I have the spelling words that we're working on this week on the board in front of me. And I want to give you some clues for you to guess which of these words I am thinking of. I'm going to give you 5 clues, so if you would take a scratch piece of paper, number from 1 to 5, like you've done before when we've done Mind Reader. And I'm going to give you some clues. Okay? It can be on any piece of typing paper or 3x5 card, whatever you've got in front of you. Okay. It is, the first clue is it is one of our spelling words. That's really not a very good clue, I know. But just choose one of them and write it down for your guess number 1. Okay? It is one of a homonym with one partner. It is a homonym that has one other word that sounds the same but is spelled differently. So if you used one of these ones that had 3 examples, you need to change your guess for number 2. It is one of the homonyms that just has one other word that is spelled, that sounds similarly to it. Number 3. This word that I'm thinking of today starts with a consonant. So if you were thinking of one of the words that started with a vowel, you need to change your mind, students. Okay. So give me a different guess for number 3, or if it still fits, you can keep writing the same word each time. See if you can get it from the very first time. Okay. Your next clue, number 4, is it also ends in a consonant. It starts with a consonant and ends with a consonant. So if you had chosen, for example, one of these words that end in a vowel, okay, please write a new guess down. Okay. Okay, my final clue is a little bit tricky. This clue is you might need this word if you are at the Nile River. Okay. You're at the Nile River. Now, there's 2 possible words that would fit, okay, with that. But I want to simplify it even more. If you're at the Nile River with our class, you will need this word. If you're at the Nile River with our Lumen class, and that should narrow it down to just one word that you could use for different meanings. Okay? I'm crazy, huh? You're probably just like, what on earth are you talking about, Sister Holly? Okay, Mind Reader. Have fun practicing with these words over the next few days. I have a video clip I want to share with you. I've been writing down just stories of experiences that have happened in our own lives. You know, it's really fun to learn about the experiences that your parents and your grandparents have had, your great-grandparents. You can learn a lot from your parents and your grandparents and the experiences they have. This is maybe learning from their bad examples, learning what not to do. Okay, so I want to share with you just briefly this fun Studio C clip, and then I'm going to share a story of something that happened to my kids' grandpa and grandma. Just a second to skip the ad. Here we go. Sorry about that. Give me a second. We'll let it kind of buffer and run for a little bit so it's not, you're not waiting, it's not skipping around a lot, students. So I think we're ready.
Grandma, look what we found.
Oh my old keepsake box. Why, I've saved 100 memories in this thing.
Oh, you know what? Let me record this for posterity.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and just tell us all about it.
Well, all right, let me see here. Oh my. It's an old ticket stub to the drive-in picture show. That was the first date your grandfather and I ever went on.
No way.
Yeah. Oh, and here is the key to our first apartment as a married couple. And, oh, looky here. Our first dollar from the first bank we ever robbed.
Say again?
Yes, those were the days. We held up every bank west of the Mississippi. And your grandfather, he carried the gun, and I became pretty handy with a switchblade. That switchblade. Oh, now careful, Mallory. Now you remember, a lady is only as good as her stabbing implement. Yes, here we go. I still got it.
Well, that was a fun, if not unexpected story. Why don't we move on? What are these, Grandma?
Mugshots. Yes, we were cornered down in Mexico, and after 3 days of fighting and unspeakable carnage, we gave ourselves up.
How long were you in prison?
Oh, not long. They had to let us go on a technicality.
Oh.
But let me assure you, we were as guilty as they come.
That's comforting.
Yes, but we saw our freedom as a new lease on life. So your grandfather and I decided to start family.
Okay, see,
that's a crime family. Yes, we ran the whole east side of Chicago, and we trafficked all kinds of illegal goods. And the things we had to do to stay in power, let me tell you. There was this one time I had a snitch tied up in the basement.
Okay, Grandma, why don't we skip ahead to the part where you and Grandpa completely changed and became good law-abiding citizens?
Well, it all became too much for us. All the violence and all the blackmail and all the 7 horse heads that we put in people's beds. It gets messy. So we went straight, as they say, after just a few short decades.
We're so proud of you.
Yes, your grandfather, he became a school teacher, and I sold pies out of the house. Well, I know that's not as exciting as...
No, Grandma, see, that's super sweet and picturesque. Actually, when you tell people your history, you really should just jump to that part, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, thank you, dears. This has been quite a day.
It has.
Yes, I'm feeling kind of tuckered out. I think I might go and take a nap. But would you see that my switchblade gets put back in the box?
Yes, I will do that. And I'll make sure this stuff gets put somewhere safe and very deep.
Sweet girl, Mallory.
Let us know if you need anything.
Oh, yeah. Maybe some malto meal.
Okay.
Godmother,
Done kept struggling.
I've brought you the cash for the goods.
Yeah, I brought you the goods for the cash.
Grandma, I'm just slowly. Okay.
there's something wrong with that boy.
Yeah.
Well, give my love to your family, Don.
Sure will. Thanks, Godmother. You're the best.
Oh, sweet boy. Yes. Buenas noches.
Hey guys, thanks so much.
So, we all might have stories in our family tree that aren't the best, but that's just a funny example. Studies have shown actually that those students who know the most about their family history have the strongest sense of who they are, their strongest identity, and make the best choices themselves. Isn't that really interesting that knowing about your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents can make you personally just stronger? So I encourage you to share your story that you've written with your family and then ask for their stories as well. I want to tell you a story that comes from our family history. So my husband's parents, Melvin and Dixie Rowley, were living in Arizona when they first got married, and they loved archery. And they competed in archery competitions, shooting their bows throughout the early part of their married life. And they were really, really good. My mother-in-law was really, really good with a bow and arrow. But my father-in-law as well. So one time they were out in the desert, and they'd been shooting at some targets that were set out across the way. And when they tallied up their scores, my mother-in-law realized, oh my goodness, I just beat my husband. I was a much better shot than him. And she just announced that she had won when all of a sudden my father-in-law just like backhanded her as hard as he could into her chest. And my mother-in-law was just like, oh no, he's so mad that I beat him. He's hit me. He's so mad I beat him. He hit me. She couldn't believe it. Well, no sooner had he struck her like this than he pulled his bow and turned and knocked an arrow in it and turned towards her. And in the split second she had to see that, she thought, he's going to kill me now. And then he released the arrow, and it went into the mouth of a diamondback rattler that was coiled, ready to strike my mother-in-law at her feet. And she hadn't even seen it. And so he'd been pushing her out of the way, and then he nailed the snake and killed it instantly. A snake that might have killed her and taken her life. So that's just a funny story that we like to share in our family as part of our family history. I'm wanting to use this story to create some sentences, students. So I'm going to move our spelling words for a minute. And we're going to see if we can write some of the types of sentences that we've been learning about to describe this scene, this story that I just told you. Okay, the first type of sentence is a declarative sentence. And you remember that it is a sentence that just makes a statement. Okay? So how could we talk about the first part of this story? Just by making a statement. Okay? We would say, Melvin and Dixie were target shooting with their bows, right? That's just a simple statement, ends with a period. It is just declaring some information about our story. Let's see if we can do one more declarative sentence. I'm going to abbreviate it. DEC. That's an abbreviation for December. That doesn't look too good. DECL maybe. What's another sentence that I could write to tell what happened next in this story? Dixie realized she had beat Melvin. Okay. Just in stating a fact. Okay. Dixie realized she had beat Melvin. Okay. Let's see if we can do now go to an exclamatory sentence. Okay. You can think about what that means because exclamation point, right, has the same root as that, exclamatory. Using an exclamation. Okay. I won. I won, she said. And there we've even got an exclamation point to emphasize. This is a woohoo exclamation point, right? We talked about those ending punctuation marks earlier. The next sentence I want to use is an imperative. Imperative. I don't know about you, but that sounds very like imperial. You think about imperial. That's like the king, the emperor. An imperative is like a command. So the imperial command, he gives an imperative and you have to do it. Okay? I don't think my father-in-law had time to say anything at all, but let's just imagine that he did. Okay? What if he said, move, Dixie? And making a command. Imperatives can be given with just a statement, just a period, or with an exclamation point. Okay, either one. We're going to say that he gives this command with an exclamation point as an imperative. Move, Dixie. Okay? Telling her what to do. Go clean your room. Be quiet right now. Okay? Whatever commands, right, that are given. Command or a request. Oh, interesting. So please move is also an imperative. It doesn't have to be mean. It doesn't have to sound mean. Please put your dirty dish in the sink is still an imperative, right? And that would just end with a period. Okay. I want to do now that interrogative sentence. And if you think about it, if you've ever seen a cop movie, they interrogate the prisoners. So an interrogative sentence is kind of like an interrogation, asking questions after questions after question. Interrogation, right? Interrogative. And Dixie thought, is he going to kill me? We've got all 4 types. Can we finish up by adding just to the end of the story by adding a few more? We've already got our 2 declaratives. Move, Dixie. Is he going to kill me? Let's do an exclamatory sentence again. Remember what exclamatory is? With an exclamation. Oh no. There is a snake. I think that would be a exclamation sentence if I saw a rattlesnake in front of me at my feet. Okay. Okay. Now we just need an imperative and an interrogative. Okay. Maybe this is a question Dixie asked after it was over. How did you act that fast? And finally, let's end with an imperative. What would Dixie have said after this was all over, do you think? And you can't see all those. Well, here you go. How did you act that fast? And then let me end with a final imperative. And this time we'll do it in a nice way. Please, could you please pick up the dead snake from off my foot? And take that arrow out of that, because that arrow was like $8. Please pick up the dead snake and get your arrow out of its mouth, because I don't want to buy another one. Okay, students, so that's how those sentences are used. We use all of them, don't we? Interchangeably all day long. Okay, let's pick up as we finish this video with another fun story. This one I'm going to do from the West. Okay? No, I think I'm going to do instead the South. Okay? Because I want to share with you a funny story that comes from ancient Africa. Okay? And if you picture where Egypt is, then, and the Fertile Crescent, and a lot of our civilizations that have been right up there, we're coming south from that down into Africa. Okay, so that's put Africans in on your cootie catcher for the South. And let's learn about the ancient civilization of Africa. The people of Africa did not leave written records or thousands of artifacts behind them. So we don't know as much about ancient Africa as we do about ancient Egypt. But we do know that people have lived in Africa from the very earliest times. If you were to move your finger down from the Nile River, you would come to a huge sandy desert, the Sahara Desert. Today, the Sahara Desert is as hot and dry as an oven. The ground is cracked and parched. Sand drifts over the iron-hard ground and piles up in huge drifts called dunes. The only water lies in oases, little patches of land where water collects, and a few scrubby palm trees can grow. Tiny villages sometimes settle in these oases. The people raise desert animals that don't need much water, such as sheep, camels, and goats. They eat dates that grow on the palm trees. Sometimes one tree is owned by several families who share it. Life in the Sahara Desert is difficult and dangerous, but long ago, this part of Africa wasn't a desert. It was a green, fertile place full of water and trees. Rivers and streams used to run where rocky, dry valleys lie now. Grassy meadows once grew where shifting sands now blow. Herds of gazelles and antelopes roamed through the green plains. Fish, crocodiles, and hippopotami swam in the rivers. Wild cows and sheep lived in the forests, and the people of the Sahara were farmers. They hunted wild animals and raised their own for food. How do we know this? Archaeologists who dug down through the hard dirt of the Sahara Desert found ancient pollen from trees and seeds from grasses and flowers. None of these trees or flowers grow in the Sahara today. They left their seeds long, long ago. The archaeologists also found bones of animals that used to live in the Sahara back when there was enough water for them. In one place, the people who lived in a Saharan village had eaten a feast of turtle. There were hundreds of shells that had been cracked open for their meat. In another place, the villagers had eaten an entire giraffe, except for its head. And the ancient people of Africa also left paintings behind them. They drew pictures of their way of life on the stone walls of caves. In these paintings, we see men growing crops and taking care of herds of animals. We see women in beautiful clothes riding tame cows. These pictures tell us about the way the Sahara used to be. But then something happened in the Sahara. The rains got scarcer and scarcer. Trees began to wither and die. The grass died too, and the ground dried up until it was nothing more than dust and sand. The river stopped flowing and the streams disappeared. The animals went further and further south, down to the parts of Africa where there was still water and food, and the people of the Sahara went south too. They traveled for weeks and weeks to get to the center of Africa. There they settled around the lakes and rivers and began a new life, and above them, the Sahara turned into desert. From now on, Africa would be divided by the huge, dangerous desert. The ancient people of Africa didn't leave mummies or clay tablets behind them, but they did leave stories passed down from person to person. Anansi the spider is a favorite character of African storytellers. Anansi is a tricky spider who often gets his way, but sometimes he is outwitted. Here is a story about Anansi and his friend Turtle. It comes from the Yoruba people of Nigeria, a West African country that is just south of the Saharan desert. In this story, Anansi is hungry and he's looking forward to eating a good supper of yams. Yams are a bit like potatoes, only rough on the outside like a coconut. The people of Africa have grown them in the ground for thousands of years. Anansi the spider was hungry. He had dug some of the fattest yams ever out of his garden and had baked them carefully in his clay oven. Now they were ready to come out. The yams smelled wonderful and he couldn't wait to dig in. But just as he was sitting down to his meal, along wandered Turtle. Now Anansi and Turtle were friends, but when Anansi looked at his yams and then looked at Turtle, he thought, there's just enough yams for me. If Turtle eats half of them, I'll still be hungry. Oh, Anansi, Turtle said, how wonderful those yams smell. It has taken me all day to crawl over to your house for a visit, and I haven't eaten my lunch or my supper. Please share your yams with me. Now, in Africa, it is the custom to share your meal with any visitor who asks, so Anansi couldn't say no. He said grumpily, I would be happy to share my yams with you, Turtle. Have a seat. Help yourself. Turtle sat down and reached for the fattest yam, but just as he was about to touch it, Anansi shouted, Stop! Are you going to eat with those filthy flippers? Really, Turtle, don't you think you should wash off first? Now, Turtle had been crawling all day, and he was dirty and sandy and hadn't come across any water. And when he looked at his flippers, they certainly were dirty. Where should I wash? He said. Go wash in the river. Nancy said, it's only half a mile away. Poor Turtle, he got up and crawled off to the river to wash his flippers. By the time he came back, the yams were half gone. Anansi said with his mouth full, Sorry, Turtle, you were so long that I had to start eating, but go ahead and have some yams. Turtle reached for the yams, but his flippers had gotten dirty again from his journey back up from the river. Turtle, Anansi yelled, didn't I say you should wash yourself off? Don't come to the table dirty. Turtle crawled wearily out to wash himself again. When he climbed slowly back up from the river, he was very careful to stay on the grass. But when he got to the table and reached out his clean flipper for a yam, the last crumbs were gone. Turtle looked sadly at the empty platter. Well, he said after a little while, thank you for inviting me to supper, Anansi. The next time you come by my house, be sure to share my dinner with me. And he got down and crawled away, still hungry. A few days later, Anansi was going by Turtle's house on the riverbank. Turtle told me that he would share his food with me, he thought. I'll stop and eat with him. So he bounced up and knocked on Turtle's door. Turtle, Turtle, I'm ready for supper. Turtle opened the door and blinked at Anansi. Supper is ready, he said. Come along with me. It's right down here. With that, he led Anansi to the river's edge. I've set the table right down there at the bottom of the water, he said. Dive on down and eat. And with that, he slipped into the water, swam down to the river's bottom, and started to eat. Anansi ran back and forth on the bank. First he tried jumping into the water, but he was so light that he floated on the top. He tried to swim down. He tried to make himself sink, but nothing worked. And down below, he could see Turtle polishing off all the food. Finally, Anansi stuffed the pockets of his tiny jacket full of pebbles and jumped back into the water. He sank like a stone right down to the bottom, where Turtle was eating his way through a whole platter full of delicious food. Turtle pushed the platter over. Here, he said, have some, but first, Anansi, take off your jacket. It's so rude to wear your coat at the table. Anansi took off his jacket, and as soon as it was off his shoulders, he popped right back up to the surface of the water. When he stuck his head underwater, he could just see Turtle finishing off the very last morsel of food. Thank you for supper, Turtle, he said gloomily, and he swam back to the riverbank, wet and hungry. Moral, if you try to be too smart, you find that someone else outsmarts you instead. Anyway, students, I love that story. We need to think about what we might want to do as so write Africans, if you haven't already, on your one of your flaps under S. And then think of a curse or a good fortune that could follow if you were in Africa, ancient Africa. So I'm thinking my curse would be stranded on the desert without water, buried alive on the desert, in the desert. Okay, find an oasis, but it's really only a mirage. One of the cool images that I had in here was riding a, what did it say, tame cow. It showed pictures of riding tame cows, the women riding tame cows. So maybe you have a pet cow that you could ride. That might be a good fortune. Or eat lots of turtles. Or get a giraffe for dinner, students. Does that sound like a good fortune? You're so lucky you get to eat a giraffe for dinner. Or a whole turtle. Just crack open its shell. Hey, thank you, students. It's fun to learn about these ancient civilizations with you. And if you're finished with that, you have time to work on some action items or anything you would like to do. And we'll talk to you next on Wednesday.